Hello, Mia. What's troubling you? It's a chilly day, with Christmas songs echoing throughout the city. I paused to admire a tree ornament that caught my attention, while my husband, his breath visible in the cold air, glanced back at me from a few steps ahead, wearing a soft smile. His ears had turned red from the cold. I adore the way he gazes at me. Nothing, let's head home and enjoy dinner. I've prepared a hot stew, perfect for this exceptionally cold day. Sounds wonderful, we chuckled, holding hands as we strolled down the street. From somewhere nearby, a familiar Christmas tune filled my ears. I am Mia. What I'm about to recount is a rather peculiar Christmas miracle I experienced a few years ago, along with the events leading up to it. You're late. Before I could respond, my husband Daniel unleashed his anger at me. Where have you been? It was the middle of December, and the imminent snowfall added to the cold atmosphere. His harsh words drove me out into the cold without my coat just moments ago. Are you trying to deceive me? I'm the breadwinner here. When I come home, I expect a proper dinner to be ready and served. Can't you even manage such a simple task? He scolded me sternly right in front of our dinner. No hot sauce. And why do you seem so indifferent about it? Chicken wings are meant to be enjoyed with hot sauce. Don't provoke me. I was scolded so fiercely that I rushed out of the apartment, wallet in hand, and returned with the hot sauce. As I gasped for breath, his irritation only grew. A deli? Are you out of your mind? Isn't it cheaper to buy it at a supermarket? He pointed at the hot sauce and rolled his eyes. You have no sense of budgeting. I couldn't help but retort. Sure, I buy groceries at the supermarket, but it's quite far away. I mentioned earlier that I forgot to buy it today. Anyway, you get upset if the food gets cold, so that's why I went to the nearest store. I did forget to put it on the shopping list, and we had run out, but I was sure the chicken wings would still taste fine without it. I couldn't fathom why he was so furious about it. His anger showed no sign of subsiding. For heaven's sake, where's your apology? I apologized earlier, didn't I? What's with your attitude? You're the one. My retort only fueled his anger, and he continued berating me for another hour. Who wants to eat such stale food now? In the end, he overturned the plate of chicken wings and went out to grab dinner elsewhere. A few days later, I visited my parents' house, which was up for sale, and stopped by to see an elderly lady in the neighborhood whom I affectionately called Grandma. Listen, Grandma, your predictions were wrong for the first time. She chuckled ambiguously and replied, I never made any predictions. No way. Everything you foretold since I was a child has come true. If they weren't predictions, were they prophecies? I offered a wry smile. Remember the time you advised me not to go to the mall, and then there was a lightning strike that nearly burned it down? Or when I planned to stay home all day, but you insisted I go out because it would be sunny. I reluctantly followed your advice and found out my house had been robbed. If I had been home, I would have certainly encountered the burglar. I still shudder when I think about it. They caught the robber later, with a knife in his pocket. What if I had been at home that day? The thought sent shivers down my spine. Apart from these instances, her predictions had been consistently accurate, almost as if she were a genuine prophet. Hey, Grandma. Yes. Despite her earlier claims that it was all in my mind or mere coincidences, she listened intently when my tone grew serious. I don't think I would have been prepared for my mom's illness if you hadn't warned me, especially since she was my only family. My mother also mentioned that you had given her peace of mind. You told her that I would receive a special blessing on an upcoming Christmas, which comforted her knowing that I would have a bright future even after she was gone. My mom shared this with me during her hospital stay, and it was a ray of hope for her. Seeing her content with this prediction was a testament to her love for me. That's why, when Daniel proposed to me on Christmas Day, I couldn't help but think of it as something you had foretold. I had met him through a mutual friend, and back then he seemed humble and gentle. However, after we got married, he transformed into an arrogant husband. Much like the incident with the hot sauce, he would get upset over trivial matters, commenting that the food was too cold or a salad was not warm enough. He often immersed himself in his phone, ignoring the food for extended periods. It wasn't just about food. He criticized my cleaning and laundry skills, finding fault in almost everything I did. I began to feel trapped and suffocated in the relationship. I confided in Grandma, my voice tinged with frustration. Now it's nearly sunset. Don't you have to go back and prepare dinner? She urged me gently, her pace slow, which made me feel somewhat rejected. I reluctantly rose from my seat. You'll be all right as long as you stand your ground. Even though there will be struggles, you'll find happiness one day. You'll experience a Christmas that fills you with joy, so live honestly and truthfully. God is watching. Her words softened my heavy heart, and I turned to her with curiosity. Is this a prediction? I asked. She gave me an enigmatic smile and replied, Let's see, dear, I'm just an older woman. I resolved to put in more effort, hoping that Daniel would change, but instead, his hostility towards me grew day by day. It hadn't even been a year since our marriage, yet it had become the norm for him to boss me around. His demeanor lacked kindness, and he was constantly grumpy and domineering. One night, he was upset with me again. "You don't have the decency to welcome me back home. Who do you think you are, lingering outside until now? I have to warm up my food in the microwave. Darn it." His menacing tone made me sigh. "I told you, remember? I had a cooperative meeting tonight. I'd even left a note on the table for you." "Shut up. That's no excuse for not cooking properly." His logic was warped. I should come first before anyone or anything else. I provide for you. You're my wife, and you should obey me. That's insane. I was baffled by his unreasonable demand. He stood his ground and declared, "You have no family or relatives, and you can't survive on your own. A person like you should keep quiet and worship me. If you can't do that, I'll divorce you." He smirked at me as if he were relieving stress by making me submit to him. I tried my best to contain my anger. Arguing with him would only make matters worse. Besides, I had nowhere to go in the middle of a snowy night, so I reluctantly sat down on the floor to give him a foot massage. My life continued in this manner until one day, I collapsed in excruciating pain while grocery shopping and was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. I couldn't comprehend it as my doctor explained my condition. "This virus is transmitted through sexual intercourse. I had your husband tested as well, and both of you are infected. There were no symptoms, which is why you didn't realize it. From what I can see, surgery is necessary. I regret to say that the chances of conceiving in the future seem highly unlikely." Despite his apparent concern, he made his message crystal clear and promptly left. Daniel hurriedly followed the doctor, leaving me alone to process the devastating news I couldn't have a baby. As I repeated this harsh reality to myself, my once blank mind filled with darkness. I needed more information, so I mustered the strength to follow the doctor and Daniel on my unsteady legs. "Wait, Dr. Daniel." My voice trembled as I attempted to catch up to them, but I froze in my tracks when I overheard their conversation. "So do all the people I've been with need to get tested?" Daniel inquired anxiously. The doctor's tone was growing impatient as he replied, "Exactly. They all need to be treated simultaneously. Otherwise, there's no point as the infection keeps recurring." "Would they understand what the test is for?" Daniel pressed further. "Of course," the doctor confirmed. Despair washed over me as I eavesdropped on this exchange between Daniel, who was persistent, and the increasingly frustrated doctor. It appeared that Daniel had been involved with at least 3 other women and was still seeing them. Alone in an empty room, I voiced my complaints to a picture of my late mother. "I had hope, you know. Even though he's not a good husband now, I thought he might change once we had a baby." These words echoed in my mind, reminding me of Grandma's words, which had felt like a good luck charm, promising struggles but ultimate happiness. It seemed I had been mistaken. In reality, Daniel seemed solely concerned with his own health, diligently attending hospital appointments for himself while showing no concern for me. Having lost my parents, I longed deeply for a family of my own, with a loving husband and children. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I held a picture of my mother. "Mom," I couldn't hold back a sob, and that's when Daniel suddenly entered the room. "What are you wasting your time for? You haven't prepared dinner yet. Here are the divorce papers." He thrust the papers onto my head as I remained frozen in place. "Consider it your punishment for neglecting your master and causing a scene." He barged into the room, his presence noisy and unsettling. "You're an endlessly depressing person. I'm ready to divorce you at any time. No problem for me. You're the one who's going to be in trouble, right?" He taunted me. "Instead of slacking off, do your duty. If you don't want a divorce, then don't slack off. Oh wait, there's one more punishment. I won't be giving you any living expenses this month." A smirk adorned his face as he approached me. "Consider this an opportunity to reflect and change your attitude. Know your place. Disobey me, and it's a divorce." After delivering his ultimatums, he left the room, appearing rather pleased with himself. The word divorce hung in the air, and I felt my emotions gradually cool as I stared at Daniel's signature on the divorce papers. "Mom," I whispered, wiping away my tears from the picture frame. "Watch over me." I decided to keep quiet and continue living with Daniel for a while longer. He continued treating me like a servant and unleashing his anger on me. While I occasionally argued back, most days passed in silence. "I've told you already, I can't eat lukewarm salad, and cold stew is out of the question. How long does it take for you to get things right?" As he began his usual tantrum, I internally sighed and put my plan into action. "If I don't obey, you'll divorce me, right?" I asked him calmly. That's right. At least you remember that, he replied, his tone condescending. If you don't want me to leave you, reflect on your foolishness. He scoffed and leaned back in his chair. You're quite slow-witted, aren't you? I met his gaze directly. What did you say? He blinked in surprise at my response. You keep repeating the same thing over and over. Do you know what vocabulary is? All you say is divorce. Your limited vocabulary is rather pitiful. What the heck? Let's get a divorce. It's perfectly fine with me. I'll become a stranger to you, just as you wish. What? Are you serious? Daniel was taken aback by my sudden declaration. I offered a smile and bid my farewell to him, leaving him speechless as usual. I've already moved all my essential belongings out of here. If there's anything you don't need, feel free to dispose of it. Goodbye. I untied the apron I had purchased when I got married and folded it delicately. Placing it gently in front of him, I set the house keys on top of it. I cast one last glance at him before departing the house with my pre-packed suitcase. What's happening? His voice trailed after me as if he had snapped out of his bewilderment, but I couldn't care less. Yay, I'm free! I exclaimed to myself and pretended not to hear anything. With a renewed sense of liberation, I made my way lightly to my parents' house, where I had decided to live once more. 1 year had passed since then, and the divorce was already finalized, but Daniel continued to contact me persistently. You're sorry, aren't you? I'll take you back if you apologize. A wife should. His texts were nonstop, unlike anything I had experienced during our marriage. After enduring his relentless messages, I finally agreed to a face-to-face meeting with him at his parents' house. Why have you been ignoring me? Daniel, who seemed to maintain a composed facade in front of his parents, addressed me in a rational manner. I've been texting you all this time, but you never replied once. I replied casually, oh yeah, I turned off notifications for your messages. His eyebrows furrowed as he asked, why? Am I annoying? I replied matter-of-factly, yes, you are. So what do you want to talk to me about? His face reddened with anger at my deliberately irritable tone. What's with your attitude in front of my parents? What the heck do you? He began to raise his voice, but then remembered where he was and offered an apology, something he had rarely done during our marriage. I thought to myself, wow, he knows how to apologize. I resisted the urge to tease him and urged him to continue. What do you need to discuss with your ex-wife whom you divorced? He got to the point, looking puzzled, but I maintained my relaxed demeanor in the presence of his parents. Hold on, why are you acting so strange? Aren't you struggling after the divorce? How are you managing? He pretended to be concerned about me, even though he knew my whereabouts and had never checked on me. I replied, I don't mind getting back together if that's what you want. I couldn't help but smirk, seeing his unwarranted confidence. Doesn't it make you happy? Not at all. I almost burst into laughter at his audacity. It doesn't make me happy, and it doesn't benefit me in any way. I earn enough to support myself. Besides, the living expenses you used to provide were only $500 a month, which was insufficient for our needs. You're struggling to manage that amount without me, aren't you? The expenses I covered for you are gone now, and I'm much more comfortable being alone. I don't see the point of reuniting after enjoying my freedom. I pretend to be baffled, which clearly agitates him. What? You were supposed to be a housewife. Ignoring his complaints, I addressed him calmly. The details of my current situation aren't what we're here to discuss. Listen, Daniel, stop acting like a child caught misbehaving and calm down. Trying to make yourself look good won't work. Your parents are aware of all your secrets. He protested, what secrets? I gestured for him to remain quiet and continued, you're mistaken about me. I wasn't just a housewife. I told you about my time living abroad due to my late father's work, right? I used my knowledge of German, which I acquired during that period, to provide translations at home. There were many materials on the bookshelves, you know. You had no interest in them, so you never touched those materials and manuscripts before translation. Thanks to that, I was able to conceal some recording equipment. I paused for emphasis. Wait. Daniel was taken aback when he heard the word recording, and it was his father who presented the actual evidence. See, all your secrets, like how you used to treat me, are now exposed. Your parents are ashamed to have raised a son who treated me so poorly. I continued, they regret the way you behaved, and they apologized to me. Daniel squirmed uncomfortably under the spotlight, looking like he wanted to flee, but his mother held him in place. She communicated with me through her eyes, and in response, I retrieved the papers. These are copies of the divorce papers, I stated. I pointed to specific sections marked with a red circle and turned Daniel's attention to them. His shock was evident as he muttered, you know them, don't you? I didn't wait for his response. Before I could continue, a resentful voice chimed in. Daniel, you never told us about the STD. We only have a relationship with you. That means you brought it in from somewhere else, didn't you? Another girlfriend added. I mean, what am I, a fling? Didn't you say we'll get married one day? That's something only a bachelor would say. Oh no, we watched the video too. You are a villain not only to us but to all women. You are the #1 public enemy. You are finished. Surrounded by his girlfriends, Daniel collapsed to the floor. His parents sighed dramatically, lamenting their son's behavior. I had hired a private detective to investigate his girlfriends and had discreetly contacted them. Of course, I had also shared the entire story with my former in-laws. The result was the chaos that had unfolded before us. Your game is up now, I declared firmly. No, his parents strongly insisted that their son needed to face consequences. All his girlfriends and I demanded compensation from him. Since he worked for a company owned by one of his mother's family members, the payments were deducted from his payroll to ensure he couldn't escape. He was taken back to his parents' home against his will, where he faced a lengthy period of making compensation payments. 6 years had passed since then. Hey Mia, what's wrong? My current husband asked me, snapping me out of my reverie. It was a cold day with Christmas songs filling the city. I had paused to admire a tree ornament that had caught my eye. My husband, his breath visible in the chilly air, turned his head to look at me and smiled softly. The little girl in his arms also had rosy cheeks. I adored them both so much. Grandma's prediction is truly remarkable. I'm used to myself. My current husband happened to be the brother of one of Daniel's former girlfriends. I had struck up a friendship with Daniel's ex-girlfriends after everything had settled down, and we still hung out occasionally. I had met my current husband by chance, and he had been a soothing presence during my recovery from depression. It was indeed a strange turn of events. If not for what had happened with Daniel, I likely wouldn't have crossed paths with my current husband. It dawned on me that this was what Grandma had meant when she said I would face challenges but ultimately find happiness. I was once again amazed by her prediction. Furthermore, after we got married, I became pregnant, which was considered extremely unlikely given my medical history. I reminisced about the time I fell ill on Christmas Day and was rushed to the emergency room where the doctor revealed that I was pregnant. My husband and I were overjoyed, jumping up and down, much to the annoyance of the nurse who scolded us to stay calm and rest. It was a genuine Christmas miracle, and this time of year always made me reflect on it deeply. Returning to the present, my thoughts were interrupted when my daughter, bundled up in her fuzzy coat, left my husband's arms and clung to me. "Mommy," she exclaimed. I smiled down at her. "Nothing. Let's go home and have dinner. It's hot stew for an especially cold day. I've already prepared it." "Sounds great, yay." Laughing, we held hands and walked down the street, and in the background, a familiar Christmas song filled the air.